What's up, everybody, and welcome to Out Motorsports. My name is Tyler, and this week we're in the 2020 Hyundai Sonata Limited. Before we get started, I just want to ask you guys to go check out our website, outmotorsports.com, give this video a like and subscribe to our channel for more content, and go check us out on Instagram and Facebook at Out Motorsports. Getting started right off the bat here, we're going to go to one of my favorite local roads that I've just pulled over. And we're going to get started. Just floor it in this 2020 Sonata. This limited model has the same 1.6 liter that Hyundai's been using for quite some time in their cars now. It responds very well, but compared to the Mazda 6 that we were in last week, this car really relies on the transmission more than it does the engine. That Mazda 6 last week was full of torque. It had 310 foot-pounds of torque. This car is a 4-cylinder 1.6 turbo, like I said, and it only has 180 horsepower and 196 foot-pounds of torque. The chassis, on the other hand, is pretty lively and sprightly. We're going to throw it around some of these corners right here. What's interesting is that the steering rack in this car is actually shorter, and it feels a bit more responsive than the steering rack that was in that Mazda last week. I don't really think that these are comparable cars. I think their intentions are very separate, which we'll get to a little bit later after we're done on this road. But on this road, it's actually sort of willing. Like I said, turn in is nice and sharp, but after you turn in right about there, you feel the traction control, when it's on, do some work, and it kind of makes the rear end feel like it's shifting around you, like it has a little bit better weight distribution than it does. This car is 3,300 pounds, so it's definitely not heavy by modern standards. It's actually not too far off of my 128 that I autocross with. And you really do feel that it's a light chassis. The front end loads up very nicely. The turn in is really nice with a nice direct steering rack. Once you do get loaded up into the corner, you feel that lack of front camper and you feel those all-season tires. But you get that with any modern day mid-size sedan, especially a front-wheel drive mid-size sedan like this one. We're going to flip around up here, and we'll do that one more time. We'll talk a little bit more about the chassis and a little bit more about the transmission. So that run we did in automatic mode. This run I'm going to do with the paddles, and I'm also going to switch the drive mode over to sport. When you switch the drive mode to sport, it lights up the gauges in all red in like this splashing pattern. It's actually pretty cool. So floored, even in manual mode, it shifts for you if you hit the red line. This is an 8-speed automatic. The paddles are pretty responsive. This engine doesn't really like to be revved. It reminds me a lot of the 1.6 EcoBoost that was in my Fiesta. The characteristics of how it's revved are kind of the same. Right around there, mid-corner and on-corner exit, you get the rear end start to step out. It feels a little bit more connected, believe it or not, than the Mazda that we had last week. It feels like all one package. Last week, that Mazda that we had, the rear end sort of swayed into place kind of behind the front end, and this kind of has that like center rotation feeling that a lot of BMWs actually sort of have, and I was sort of surprised by that. That doesn't come without a little bit of sacrifice in ride comfort, however. This car could use a little bit less compression damping and a little bit more rebound damping. So for those that don't know what that is, compression damping is the force that it takes to push your shock down vertically, or in other words, when you hit a pothole, it's that force, that impact that you feel when you hit a pothole. Rebound damping is the control that the shock has on rebound when it's coming back up, like after you would hit that pothole. For those of us that race and autocross, those are two like really important settings on a shock for car control. I'm just gonna flip around here again, and then we'll do some quieter stuff after we talk about this rebound damping. But like I said, it could use with a little bit less compression and a little bit more rebound. because when you go over potholes in this car, you do feel that initial impact, and after you hit that pothole, you get a little bit of a bounciness. Really, that's just down to suspension tuning. It's not a super sophisticated suspension like you get in more expensive cars. But like I said in the beginning of this video, I don't really think, regardless of the looks, I don't really think the intentions of this Sonata are as sporting as it actually sort of is. The upsides to this car are, number one, the warranty. You get that 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty on these Hyundais. And see right there, it pushes just a little bit in the front once you get towards corner exit. But like I said, you get that 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty on these Hyundais, and you get a vehicle that's packed with a bunch of features. So this car has everything you could imagine, basically, for under $35,000. I think the sticker on this car is $33,900. You get things like radar-guided cruise control, lane keep assist. This car will basically drive itself when you have the radar-guided cruise control on. You just have to keep your hand on the wheel. It'll follow the lane, and it does a really good job at it too. It's a little bit disconcerting if you've never been in a car that does that, but it does a really good job once it's hooked on to the lanes. And all those features are very easy to use. You have wireless charging, you have a panoramic sunroof, you get this digital dashboard, or this digital gauge cluster that I'm not usually a fan of digital gauge clusters, but this one was actually done very well. When you put your blinker on, you have your tach and your speedometer on either side, to the left or to your right, like a typical gauge cluster would have. But then when you put your blinker on, it uses the mirrors, or uses the cameras in the mirrors to show you your blind spots within those gauges, while also keeping your speed or your RPMs in those gauges. So it seems like a gimmick almost, but after you use it on a daily basis, it actually becomes sort of useful. And that's a reoccurring theme in this car. There's a lot of things that you would think would be annoying technology, but if you get this car to drive it every day, to be sort of like an ultimate daily driver with a bunch of features for a good price and a very usable warranty, it does all of that. Within that infotainment, you get basically all of the regular features you would get, but one interesting menu is a menu that is called Sounds of Nature. That is just to the right of your radio option and just to the left of Apple CarPlay. So when you click on Sounds of Nature, it's loading, but right now we're listening to a lively forest. There's also calm sea waves, a rainy day, an open air cafe. That would be wonderful right now in the middle of COVID when you actually can't go to a cafe. Your warm fireplace, a snowy village. That's interesting. That's actually the sound of somebody walking through snow. I don't know what one would really use this for. One practical way that I would actually probably use this is a lot of times, or sometimes at my 9 to 5 office job, when I'm actually going into the office, I'll go out and take a quick nap on my break. That would be a useful sort of calming feature, to go out and take a nap if I wanted to with the car on and I didn't want to really listen to anybody else around me. The rest of the interior of this car is actually really pretty nice. The sound system itself is a really good Bose sound system. Compared to the Bose that was in the Mazda last week, I think this one hits just a little bit harder. It has a better bass and a better mid-range. It has tweeters up here in the upper left in the actual door panels, and those are very crisp. Overall, it's just a very crisp sounding system. All of the touch points on the door panels and the upper dash are pretty soft touch. They're not leather, they're leather looking. They look like they're leather stitched, but they're not actually leather. It has a nice textured material on the front of the dash around all the vents, which are also very sleek and very sturdy feeling. There's touches of quality in this car where it matters. When you get further down to things like in the footwell, for instance, occasionally, I don't know if you can hear that, we're going over bumps, but that noise right there is the plastics on the transmission tunnel that are to the right of the gas pedal. If you're flagrant with the way that you put your foot on the gas sometimes. You'll hit that on the side, and it's just play in the plastic. I mean, it's very easily fixed. You can put a piece of foam back there or whatever. But it's just a noise or a rattle that's kind of down there where you're using the car all the time, and it's very easy to make it do that. And that's the only quality defect I've found in this car. Other than that, everything else seems screwed together super tight. Like I said, you have that 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty to take care of things like that. But this car is interesting to me because I am not a new user to Hyundais. I've owned a Hyundai before. A Hyundai Accent 2005 model was actually my first ever car, and boy have they come a long way since that car. That car had manual roll-up windows, manual locks, no ABS, no traction control. It had a 4-speed automatic. This one has literally double the gears of that. In just 15 years, car technology as a whole has come so far, but Hyundai themselves has come such a long way. This car is for somebody who wants to make a smart buying decision. They buy this car for all of the features it packs. In this case, it has some really bold new styling. Whether you like it or not, it's been controversial on our Facebook page and on Instagram. Asked people whether or not they liked the front end of this car. Some people loved it, some people hated it and thought it looked like a catfish. But regardless, it's a bold look, it's a bold style, and I can't wait to see how they carry on this look with further models and even the Kia lineup. Overall, I think this 2020 Sonata is a car that presents a ton of value for the money, and it's also an incredibly smart buy. For those of you who don't really want to have to deal with any mechanical issues on a car, and for those of you who just want a lot of features in a car that it's also fun to throw around a little bit on a back road with some lively steering, this might be that car for you. You have Hyundai's 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. And if you think about it, when is the last time you have kept a car for 10 years? Like, my family finances their cars, they don't lease them, and even still, we generally get rid of cars every 9 to 10 years. And theoretically, this car would be under warranty the entire time. So that's a really unique value that Hyundai has always given you in all of their cars. In the mid-size sedan segment, where sales are dropping all across the board, Hyundai has really come out with a vehicle that seems to make you forget that that's even happening. They've packed all of their features, a bunch of technology, a bunch of new styling into this new platform, and I really hope it pays off for them because this is a really special car. Hyundai has finally caught up to everybody else over the years, and they're finally starting to have a bit of a sense of humor with things like the Sounds of Nature, that's still on the radio, by the way, and other quirky things like the turn signals in the dashboard and this big infotainment system. There's just a lot of quirky things in this car that you wouldn't normally expect from Hyundai, and it's nice to see that they're finally getting a little bit more comfortable in their own skin, it seems, and they're adding their own touch to cars that are already an incredible value to begin with. So like I said in the beginning of this video, please check out our website, outmotorsports.com. Also check out our Facebook and Instagram at outmotorsports. For those of you who want a little bit more in-depth review of this vehicle, as well as those who might want to read some words and see some pictures from our photographer Christian, please go check out outmotorsports.com, where we also have an article on this 2020 Sonata. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.